agenda is set. Hello, everyone. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Today on the show, justice, Germany, and neo-Nazism on trial, and the world is watching. That and more today. It's time to talk. Into the courtroom, she is the suspected neo-Nazi accused of racially motivated killings the police did not stop. Today, we go beyond the crime and we ask what the case says about modern-day Germany. Voters in Pakistan go to the polls on Saturday. The candidates are fighting for favor and trying to stay alive. Old guard players like conservative Nawaz Sharif face new rivals and long-standing economic and social problems. And people are dying as the Taliban puts secular politicians on the hit list. And U.S. President Barack Obama has once again vowed to close the controversial Guantanamo Bay prison, a 4-year-old promise yet to be kept. Inside the prison, more than half of the inmates are now on a hunger strike in protest of being held 11 years and never charged with a crime. Can Washington find a solution, or is the only exit for these inmates death by starvation? Well, I've invited 3 people today to talk, argue, and pry apart these headlines. My first guest says that Guantanamo Bay is a showcase of human rights violations, all committed by the U.S. I'm happy to welcome to the show Wolfgang Heinz. He is with the German Institute for Human Rights. He's also a member of the Council of Europe's Committee for the Prevention of Torture. Wolfgang, can the U.S. right the wrongs of Guantanamo? Is it as simple as closing the prison?
I believe it is not only simple, but it's absolutely necessary to close a prison in a very short time. It cannot be solved from one day to the next, but it must be solved over the next months.
All right, we're going to talk about this possible timeline in just a minute. Glad to have you on the show. My second guest says that Pakistan's fragile democracy is under attack even as the nation prepares for a national election later this week. I'm happy to welcome to the show Sajjad Karim. He is a British Conservative member of the European Parliament. He set up the European Parliament's Friends of Pakistan group back in 2005. Sajjad, it's good to have you on the show. You know about violence in that part of the world. You were caught up in the attack in Mumbai back in 2008, barely escaping with your life. Pakistan looks and it feels almost like a broken country right now. Will this election bring a fix?
Well, these are crucial elections. You have, on the one hand, the very same people trying to kill at birth democracy in Afghanistan, and the same people are trying to derail the democratic structures that exist in Pakistan at the moment. Absolutely crucial that these elections are delivered.
All right, well, we're going to talk about these elections coming up in just a second. And my next guest is here to talk about the neo-Nazi trial because she survived herself an assassination attempt by a far-right group here in Germany as well. I'm happy to welcome Seyran Ateş. She is a lawyer. She has fought against forced marriage and honor killings here in the German-Turkish community. Seyran, you are a member, or you were a member of the German Islamic Conference. You are a respected voice on integration in this society. You have access to the country's top politicians. You say that it is impossible that this neo-Nazi gang operated without some high-level politicians knowing about them. That is quite an indictment.
Yes, I know, but be seriously. 10 years is a really long, long time. And many people think like me, but many people are not courage enough to say it.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, about what people are not saying and what they are saying about this case, the topic of Nazis. It is omnipresent here in Germany. Germany's Nazi past is ever present right now. Authorities, I'll give you an example. Authorities this week arrested a 93-year-old man accused of aiding in murder at the Nazi concentration camp Auschwitz between 1941 and 1945. The country's relentless pursuit of Nazi criminals and efforts at reconciliation are praised around the world, and that helps to explain the shock and disbelief of what we are seeing in a Munich courtroom now. A suspected neo-Nazi gang member and 4 others are accused of orchestrating a series of racially motivated murders here for a decade, and no one was able to stop them, not even the country's top intelligence services. Now, that has turned this trial into a litmus test of this country's commitment to fight the far right.
The murder trial of suspected neo-Nazi gang member Beate Zschäpe has finally gotten underway. She stands accused of involvement in the killings of 8 ethnic Turks, a Greek immigrant, and a German policewoman. All eyes are now on the Munich court, where the trial is being held with many members of the victims' families attending. Security is tight. 500 police officers are on site, as are hundreds of demonstrators demanding that justice is served. To date, the shocking case has been an ongoing embarrassment on all levels for the German authorities. The case has left many wondering whether Germany has turned a blind eye to far-right extremism. Experts say the trial could last up to 2 years, and few believe it will provide all answers.
What answers do you think we're going to get from this trial, Sarah?
Yeah, we can see what the German society is thinking about racism in these days, and if the trial is really brave enough to discuss political things beyond this case.
Yeah, and what is beyond this case? Are we talking about a justice system and also an intelligence gathering system that has racism built into it, or is this case just a case of gaffes and bumbling by police officers?
This case has many faces, in my opinion. So we have a very, very special situation. For 10 years, people even don't want to believe in the whole society and many politicians that there is a political reason for these cases and for the killings. This is one point. The other point is to believe in this system of our system that works well in the democracy. So it's a fair trial for Mrs. Zschäpe on one side. It should be a fair trial because we believe in democracy. But on the other side, we can see if the trial is if there's enough.
What's the word in German you're looking for?
Yeah. In der Lage.
Yeah, if they're capable.
Capable to show us really the reasons for all these mistakes done by the police.
Okay,
this is the other side.
Let's pick up on these so-called mistakes by the police.
Yeah, that's.
You went through something very similar to this back in the 1980s. I mean, someone tried to kill you.
Yeah.
And it was a far-right, a neo-Nazi Turkish group here in Germany. Yeah. And you say that allows you to understand why the intelligence services in this case made the mistake of not even considering neo-Nazis in the first place. Let's talk about your case. I mean,
the so-called mistakes are not mistakes for me. That's what I want to try to say. It's Verfassungsschutz and the intelligence.
That's the intelligence service. But talk to me a little bit about what happened to you. I mean, why did someone try to kill you?
Because I worked for women's rights in my 20s. When I was 21, when this thing happened to me, they tried to kill me, and they killed a woman. She was in the same room with me, and I tried to help her to read the papers that she brought.
And you were.
And I was a student.
Right.
And I worked there.
And you were trying to help women of Turkish origin who were in arranged marriages.
We had Turkish origin women because they cannot speak enough German to read all their papers, and we try to help them to be more independent by their husbands and also self-determinated in their life. So what we did was social work for women coming from Turkey. And there were many groups of Turkish men and also this Grey Wolves group who were against our work. And in our opinion, and we believe that, somebody hired them to kill us, to stop this place.
So these were very conservative, you say far-right Turkish group? It's
absolutely far-right Turkish group. And what the Verfassungsschutz did, the intelligence service in the trial, what happened some months later, they said, there is no registered union named Grey Wolves. They were not accepted. This is the word what I'm looking for. They never accept that there is a political reason for this, what happened.
Okay, so this, what you're saying, this criminal organization, the Grey Wolves, as you call it, you're saying they weren't on a list or a register in Germany, and therefore the police, the investigators, were not willing to investigate it.
Yeah, it was really like a joke for us, because a man from Verfassungsschutz came to the court and say he doesn't know any group with this name because it's not registered in Germany.
Okay, now let's bring this now to 2013. The police now, many...
they also say things like that. They even don't remember who hired them for this position, or they don't remember what happened in this 10 years, what they did when they did their job. And so it's like a joke for me on one side, but on the other side, it's a proof for me that police or intelligence service is really blind on the right eye for many times, many of them.
I mean, we have heard accounts from investigators, security officials, saying that they did not investigate the possibility of far-right criminals committing these murders because that was just not part of the protocol of the investigation, which is what you experienced in the 1980s. Do you think that type of narrow-minded thinking, do you think that is going to change because of this trial?
I hope it's going to change because media is much more looking on this case.
Right.
And in the 80s, I can, for example, say in the 80s when our case happened, there were much more sympathy in the media for covering this case and say it was something happened by the husband of this victim or my family did it, and so we didn't have such an audience. Now we have another audience because there are many people because there
international attention for this case.
Attention.
Sure.
Yes.
Let me pull in the gentleman here. Let me go to you first, Sajad, because this is getting a lot of attention outside of Germany. How shocked are you that this type of crime can happen here in Germany?
Well, firstly, I think, as a Brit, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but how typically German, just because the name wasn't on a list, we weren't going to investigate this any further. But what worries me is that this growing tide of rise of extremist sentiment right across Europe that we're seeing. And the fact that this has gone undetected in Germany for so long doesn't actually surprise me, because certainly in the UK, we ourselves have had an experience that the inbuilt thinking of the security services and the police investigative authorities tends to point their investigations in the direction of looking inwardly at the community they are dealing with rather than to consider other wider factors, and that's what needs to happen.
And Wolfgang, do you think that is going to happen now? I mean, are security officials going to learn to think out of the box?
I think we have a good possibility that developments will go in this direction, because we have one important factor which is different from the usual debate: human rights, racism and security bodies and security state bodies. And the big difference is they have clearly profoundly failed. And that's something which is very bad, which usually security agencies try to avoid. And if they cannot avoid it, they blame it on others. But in this case, it's very clear we have parliamentary investigative commissions. Here, they were responsible. So something must happen. So that, I believe, could help in the midterm, in the short term even, to change the way they work in this area.
And, Seyran, let me ask you, there's been a lot of criticism by members of the Turkish community in this country that this trial, this investigation has shown that they can't trust the police or even the justice system. Can this trial be a remedy for that?
Yeah, absolutely. But it depends on what finally comes out of this trial. So what happened with Ms. Chepe and the others. So, but at the same time, I can say, if we follow this court very seriously and see they really try to bring out everything what happened, what they can do. But at the end, there's another view of mine that I think we will never hear and see what really happened. What really happened.
Over those 10 years.
Over the 10 years. We will only see some points, and
but what about,
the Turkish people trust the system here in Germany on one side. But on the other side, we knew there are so many racists against us, they try to kill us, and it could be happen again. That's what many people say.
This type of crime could happen again.
Yes.
But
even when this court will be end with a good solution for the family.
what about, what Wolfgang was mentioning here, that this failure by security agencies, everything is so decentralized here in Germany, and that is a consequence of what the Nazis did in this country during the Third Reich. Is there a fix for that, a more centralization that would make agencies share information better? I mean, do we need to maybe go back to a more centralized way of looking at security?
It's another hope. I think it's just another hope to do the job better. But finally, humans are doing this job. And if we have right policeman sitting on a position and he is blind on his right eye, so there's no difference for me at the end. So even when we have decentralized intelligence services, they could do their job better than they did. There is a hope. There's a big hope that something will change. But if you don't change the personnel and if you don't change to make the work more open, there will not to be a change.
Quickly, before we move on, how do you have so much hope? I mean, you almost lost your life, and the police didn't really want to believe you. Where does all this optimism come from?
Yeah, I hear this question very often because, I'm still alive. And the police did many mistakes in our case. But finally, I see Germany is a country where we can really find out many things, even when it happens in the police department. And many things come to the light, finally. And I believe in our democracy because I see the history of Germany, and I see what Germany did in his past with cases like this. But, okay, we know this is the first case in this dimension, but we had other examples where we can see that Germany is really open to find a solution against racism and help people and the families.
Very good.
In comparing to other countries. Because I have always this big view. I look to Europe, and I'm coming from Turkey. So there are many Turkish politicians and media discussing and criticizing Germany for everything what happened in the past. But on the other hand, because I'm coming from Turkey, I ask myself and other people, what would happen in Turkey if we would have such a case there?
Well, and
we should be really serious to ask ourselves and others, what would happen in other countries in Europe?
Well, always asking questions. I think that is the motto. And, kudos to you, too, for your positive spirits there on, definitely. We want to move on now. We're going to move outside of Europe to the end spurt of national election campaigning in Pakistan, and it is violent, bloody, and deadly. Not a day goes by without an attack in the country at a political gathering. Hundreds have died this year. The Taliban is targeting secular parties. Sunni extremist groups running in this election have ties to militant groups responsible for killing minority Shiites. And beyond the sectarian violence, the economy is in critical condition. Power outages are the norm. And whoever wins this weekend will, in the words of one political leader, have a mess on his hands.
Pakistan's shaky democracy is facing a serious test ahead of general elections on May 11th. If all goes well, this could be the first time that a civilian leadership transitions via the electoral process since Pakistan's founding. Opinion polls give the edge to Nawaz Sharif and his Pakistan Muslim League Party. But Sharif, who served as prime minister over a decade ago, has told reporters he will be facing a mess if elected. The country is indeed in bad shape. Years of corruption, cronyism and poverty have taken their toll on Pakistan society. Ongoing attacks by U.S. drones, part of Washington's war on terror, have alienated many Pakistanis. The electoral process so far has been marred by violence and scare tactics. Taliban groups have carried out a number of bloody attacks on politicians and election events. Will Pakistan be able to maintain its tenuous hold on democracy?
Sajjad, let me ask you, will there be a winner in this election?
Well, I think there's two answers to that question. The elections absolutely must take place, and if that does happen, the winner is Pakistan and the people of Pakistan. Politically, will there be an overall government formed by any one party? I very much doubt it. I don't think there's going to be a clear electoral success for any party. We are once again looking, I think, at a
coalition.
We are looking once again at a coalition setup.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk just a little bit. I mean, let's look at the crystal ball for a second about coalition possibilities now. Is it possible that a coalition would have to bring in parties that represent extremist views? I mean, you have extremist parties now that are putting on a different face and running for office. Are you concerned about that?
Well, there's a whole multitude of political parties taking part in this particular election in Pakistan. The one thing that I believe we can all firmly hold to is that whenever those parties have gone to the electorate before in Pakistan, Pakistanis have always come out and voted for secular liberal parliamentarians. I believe that that will happen again. What the real game changer in all of this could actually be the party of Imran Khan, because he is a newcomer and he has managed to capture the imagination of the youth in a way that no political party has been able to do since 1974.
Yeah, he's all over Facebook.
Yeah, he's all over Facebook. The international media are taking a real interest in him. And you know, today, after Benazir Bhutto, he is the only politician in Pakistan who has two things. One, genuine grassroots support within Pakistan, and secondly, at the same time, he has an international recognition. There is nobody else in Pakistani politics that has been able to command both of those things at the same time since Benazir Bhutto.
And his views, though, are rather extremist, aren't they?
No, I don't see that at all. I mean, when one looks at the way in which he has been operating recently, he has tried to develop real grassroots support, particularly amongst the youth. Now, there are obviously lots of quotes being bandied around that are attributed to him. I have actually personally spoken to him about this. Mm-hmm. He's somebody who has spent a huge amount of his life in the West, in the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. He's done his education in the United Kingdom. His view is that he wants to reach out from Pakistan and bring the international community back into Pakistan in a favourable way, not in the way it currently is.
When he says he wants an Islamic democratic welfare state, that can be read so many ways, Shahzad, and it's getting a lot of attention in the West too as being a troublesome indicator of how this election could turn out. Are you not concerned just by that, an Islamic democratic welfare state?
Well, use of the term Islamic in itself doesn't frighten me at all, because what is Pakistan called? It is the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and it has been since its formation in 1947. It has, throughout the time that it has had democratically elected governments, it has always been a very liberal, secular and outward-looking place. The points at which it has veered towards becoming a closed state has always been at the times that you have not had democratic governments in place. So let's cling to that hope that we will have these elections and have a democratic outcome at the end of them.
What about the military? The military has always been a gigantic force in Pakistan. The military says that it is, holding back and it's letting the election process go without its influence. Is that true, and can we expect that to happen after Saturday, to continue?
Well, the military remains a real power broker and a player in Pakistan. I think anybody who tries to deny that is simply deluding themselves. The military can at any time it chooses to step in and completely derail the democratic processes. But they are openly stating, and they have been for a number of years, that they are not going to do this. And they've had a huge amount of pressure put on them at various points in the last few years for them to step in and take over power, and they have not done so. They remain committed to that process. I don't see any signs at all on the horizon that they're going to detract away from that policy at this time.
Let's talk about demographics in Pakistan. Pakistan, an incredibly young country, and I think I read, I think it's 50% of the people eligible to vote in this election will be eligible for the first time.
That's right.
I mean, so you've got a lot of young people going to the polls this time who have grown up in a miserable economy. They're used to the power going out daily. These are people who, thanks to Facebook, see how it is outside. Are you not afraid that these people will clasp onto parties that are extremists in their views but are offering to put food on the table and keep the lights on?
Not at all, because all of the evidence is pointing in completely the opposite direction. Firstly, you have historically quite a low turnout in general elections in Pakistan. This time, the situation is going to be different. Secondly, the people who are going to take part in this particular election process are exactly the people you have described, and they're going to come out in record numbers.
Why do you say that? Why are you so sure of that?
Because all of the evidence is pointing in that way from all of the conversations that I have directly had, based upon all of the polling that's taking place, all of the activity in terms of the general election campaigning that is going on the ground, all of the outreach work that these people are doing from tools like Facebook, like Twitter, from YouTube, through the television and internet networks, through the radio media. All of these things are pointing in this very direction. And that gives me a lot of hope, because when it comes to the youth in Pakistan, you actually have a generation of people there who genuinely want to bring about real meaningful change. And this is where I believe, whilst you have old-hand conservatives still in the frame, and you have even the People's Party still taking part in the electoral process, I think certainly that section of Pakistan's population is going to be wanting to move in a new, untested direction. And it is not one of extremists.
What role does the United States play in this campaign and drone attacks which have taken place in Pakistan? How is that motivating people in their political decisions?
Well, you know, when it comes to the issue of drone attacks, it's one of the election themes, one of the concerns that people have. But the overall question is this, that people ask themselves, what is the role of the state today? What is the state doing? In Pakistan today, a child is born, you are on your own. If you want to meaningfully educate that child, you have to do it yourself. The state has no responsibility. If you're the breadwinner of your family and you suffer a fatality, your family is on their own. If you suffer an injustice through criminal activity by others, the state isn't going to deliver justice to you as of right. You are on your own. The one claim that the state was able to make before was that it was defending Pakistanis from outside aggression. Well, with these drone strikes taking place, even that is questionable today. So it's all part of this greater mix, and the drone strikes are a part of this election campaign, without a doubt.
Yeah, have they polarized Pakistanis?
No, I think on this particular point, the public of Pakistan are actually unified. They say quite clearly and simply, we are a sovereign state. We are not giving permission to any outside country to come and carry out such actions on our territory. It needs to stop.
This list you go through of what a Pakistani has to deal with from day one of his or her life, you are basically, you're going through a list that Imran Khan has gone through many times. Is he going to emerge as the winner in this election? I mean, because if you say all these years that we've had these other parties in power, be it a coalition, they basically have failed. They have not given people basic services and things that would bring them into the first world. Imran Khan, for example, is saying, I will do that.
He will not get an overall majority for this reason. The way the constituencies stack up, there is still a very strong power hold of those traditionalists. What Imran Khan has the ability, I believe, will have the ability to do after these elections take place, is to have sufficient seats within the parliament to actually affect the outcome of the next government.
Before we move on, we have not mentioned Pervez Musharraf. Is he now a game changer at all, or are those just Machiavellian aspirations of power that only he possesses right now?
Well, he's certainly not a candidate in these elections. I don't see how he can actually affect the outcome of these elections or what happens after now. He is yesterday's man, and I think that's where we should leave him.
Okay, and if we were to meet a week from today, would we be talking about fair and free elections that took place in Pakistan?
Well, I certainly hope so. I've been selected to go as part of the EU election monitoring mission. I'm not going to be able to do that, but I'm very much looking forward to a very healthy report at the end of it. Certainly last time round, we were able to sign off a good report.
Okay, optimism, that's how we like to end things. All right, let's move on. At the U.S.'s Guantanamo Bay prison, the top agenda now is to keep the prisoners alive. More than 100 have been on hunger strike for months now. 21 are reportedly being force-fed. U.S. President Barack Obama has said again the prison must be closed. It is not necessary to keep America safe, and it is a recruitment tool for extremists. Those are his words. Former prisoners have published a letter calling on Obama to keep his word and to send the inmates home if no charges are to be filed, and to do it soon, before the only way to send them home is in a coffin.
The hunger strike started in February. In the last 2 weeks, it has spread, and now more than 100 out of the 166 prisoners are refusing to eat. Some 21 prisoners are being force-fed through tubes. 11 years after the camp opened, most of the inmates are still being held without charge. In 2011, Congress blocked President Barack Obama's attempt to close the camp. But a few days ago, Obama said he would make a second push to have the detention facility shut down. The camp's supporters say the inmates are dangerous enemy combatants who should be detained until the war on terror is over. But could the hunger strike finally force the prison to close?
What do you think, Wolfgang? Is this hunger strike the one that's going to finally get action?
I believe this hunger strike will help to get some action because the situation is so untenable. We have public appeals from the International Committee of the Red Cross, High Commission on Human Rights, many governments, human rights organizations in the United States saying this cannot go on. So I believe it could help to find a solution, especially since the US government can do more, as it publicly says it can, always referring to the Congress as a major bloc. But there's more it can do. There is a corridor of action, I believe.
And where does this belief come from? If I look at what's going on in the United States right now, especially what public discourse is comprised of right now, everyone's talking about Boston, the bombings there. You have, the fear of terrorism is in the air again. A majority of Americans want Guantanamo to stay open.
Yes, I would imagine, but you have in a number of countries majority of population which in a certain media environment and certain events decide that or believe that law cannot be applied. In this case, we have 166 people who are being deprived of the liberty for more than 10 years without charge or trial. As you know, military commissions have been criticized consistently in terms of lack of trial, and now we have 100 people going on hunger strike saying we rather want to die if nothing is changing than to live on in a situation where, according to media reports, 70% are being held in isolation type conditions, which the US military calls private, more private cell, or a single occupancy cell. And the key issue is, of my belief, is US government, number one, has itself imposed a moratorium on not sending people back to Yemen. There are about 46 prisoners. They themselves have done it, not the Congress. On 46 prisoners, the US government and President Obama could waive certain language and could say, we send back these people.
But Obama has said he doesn't want to send people back if he thinks they could be persecuted or killed in that country.
Yeah. These people have been clarified on security issues by their own military officers, U.S. military officers, review boards. These people want to go back. The Yemeni government has said it would take them back. And we have alone 46 Yemeni prisoners who have been cleared, have not been sent back for years, and who are waiting to get out of Guantanamo.
Okay,
what about... There are 27 others, non-Yemenite, who have also been cleared in security purpose, also not being sent back. So why should this now go on for the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, 15 years? When will it stop? That is my question.
What about the people who have been cleared to be released, but do not want to go back to the country where they came from? Yeah. So, Jean, let me ask you. You're a member of the European Parliament. Why aren't the Europeans saying, okay, America is our biggest ally, we will open our doors to provide a home for these people?
Well, I don't think it's actually quite that straightforward to be able to do that. There has been, certainly when it came to the Uyghur community of China, quite constructive steps taken at that stage to try and reaccommodate them within the European Union. I think you have to take these on a case-by-case basis. There are very clearly cases where if some of these people are returned to their country of origin, their home country, they are certainly going to suffer at the very least torture, if not death. But there are other cases where that simply will not happen. And so it has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. You are not going to get the European Union coming forward, or certainly European states, offering a blanket open policy of, yes, our doors are open for people to come here.
And is the United States responsible, too, for preparing these inmates for a re-entry into their home countries? I mean, you have dealt with people who feel alienated in the countries where they are living. Yeah. Does the United States have a responsibility to reprogram these men, if you will?
Re-socialize.
They've been gone a long time.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that the states are responsible for things like that. If it's their real home country, if they feel it's their home country, so if they want to go back, it's their own decision, so it's their own response. And I don't believe that the states are able to re-socialize them. It's a question of ability, if the states can do this job. I don't believe it. I think they have to keep them in the States. It's impossible for them because the situation in their home countries, they cannot, the states has no influence
on what other countries are going to do. But see, at the end of the day, though, you've got these men who are in this limbo. I mean, if their home countries don't want them, if it's going to be difficult to give them to Europe, the United States, obviously, has made it clear they don't want them. You're not going to find one member of Congress who's going to say, I will take this person and he can live in my state. So what do you do with these people? I mean, Wolfgang?
Well, I think the political responsibility is of the U.S. government. They have created the problem in the first place 10, 11 years ago. They have then later, very late, asked for support of other countries. Other countries have helped them. More than 50 prisoners from Guantanamo have been received by third countries. Many others have been received by other countries, like Yemen and others, so they were taken back. So a number of countries have helped. But the United States cannot condemn to death or condemn to lifelong imprisonment people who have never had a chance to present their case before a court of law. In Guantanamo, you have exactly one or two prisoners, one prisoner who has been convicted by a military commission. All the others have never been charged or sentenced. So do you say that the government has a right to put someone lifelong in prison without charge or trial that is totally incompatible with the rule of law in every Western countries I am aware of? And so it must be the US government that must take the major step in that direction. If you want to have absolute security, you put tens of thousands of people into prison, criminals, suspected criminals, and so on. You can never control that.
Wolfgang, this is not, we're not talking about the general population here. This is a very unique population that has been put together by the United States, as you say. if I try to imagine the conversations going on in the Oval Office right now about this situation, I can imagine that the president and his advisors are really racking their brains trying to find a solution over something the Bush administration created and Obama himself would have never signed on to. But you have this situation now where you also can't get a guarantee that the men, even if they were innocent when they were brought to Guantanamo, have not been radicalized by their experience. You can't give the guarantee when we release these men that they will not go to Yemen and pick up a gun.
But Brent, the point is this, that actually there are tried and tested rehabilitation methods and schemes out there that do work. One only has to look at what Saudi Arabia has been able to do in the recent past with a lot of the extremists within Saudi Arabia that they have picked up. Unfortunately, the USA got this wrong right from the outset. And today there is a real duty on the United States of America to actually start working with other states to put in place a rehabilitation program. And you are quite right.
When you say states, you mean U.S. states or other countries?
No, to work with other countries in order to try and put in place an effective rehabilitation program. I've forgotten the other point I was about to make.
No, but let's talk about that, though. I mean, I'm just wondering, is Europe the logical partner for the United States in this rehabilitation process?
It is one of the partners, but certainly the point you make is very valid. You cannot simply force on to other countries now people that have been in detention for so long when we have no real information as to what that individual's state of mind is today.
Right. Wolfgang, I'll give you the last word because we are running out of time. Very, very briefly. If and when Guantanamo is closed, will that be able to rehabilitate the U.S.'s image around the world as a defender of human rights?
I believe it would be a major progress in partly rehabilitating the international image of the United States, because Guantanamo is such a rallying point for a lot of radical and extremism, of people who are saying the West End has nothing to do with democracy and human rights. It has kept almost 800 people for a long time in Guantanamo. However, we should be aware that you have a new law, an important law, the National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed last year, which explicitly says that the United States military can keep and detain people indefinitely on terrorist charges. So on the law book, you have some issues which have to be discussed in the future.
All right, much more to talk about. We're running out of time. Thanks to all three of you for being on the show today. That's going to wrap up my agenda this week. Don't forget, you can watch the show again online. And don't be shy, our inbox is always open. You can send us an email, tell us what you think about the show. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Join me next time when I set the agenda.